Hey everyone, gather around, have a seat by the fire, and let's talk today about why, you can probably tell it's a television. Let's talk today why St. George, Utah might be calling your name. You know, it's more than just red rocks and blue skies. And you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and he was saying, you know, he actually came to St. George many years ago. He's from New York City. So you'd think a small little desert town in New York City, how does that really work? He was wondering that too. And he also hates hot weather. He loves the cold. But he's like, you know what? I've found literally everything I ever wanted here in St. George. So
And he's been here for 20 years.
Yeah, so let's talk about why St. George could also be calling your name. So first, let's just talk, you know, what is St. George even really like? Well, you may not even really know what St. George even is because, you know, St. George is a city in Utah, and people generally think when you think Utah, you think the snowy mountains, you think Salt Lake City, you think Park City. So St. George is actually an hour and 45 minutes from Las Vegas. So we have a vastly different climate than they do up in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, our altitude is way lower. We're about half the altitude of like the Salt Lake City area. Mm-hmm. And so we're the high desert, but we get, again, it's much warmer by, you know, like we don't really, shoveling snow is not a thought process. You know, it's not a thought here. Actually, we might get a light dusting of snow every so often,
yeah,
but nothing where it's not like melted by like midday, basically.
Yeah, except for like once in a generation, you know, our neighbors were saying
freak storms happen.
Freak storms about 30 years ago. One time there was a storm here where they actually had more snow here in St. George than they did in Salt Lake City at the time, and they were like driving in their truck and, you know, trying to everyone was freaking out. But that's a very, very rare, once in a generation.
I mean, I'd say we're slightly more mild than Las Vegas, but not dramatically so either.
No, not dramatically. Yeah, I would say, you know, one nice thing about St. George versus Las Vegas, I feel like Las Vegas, it's just always hot. In July, that's the worst month. It's always hot. Where I feel like here in the morning, you can still get some stuff done in the morning. It's hot, but it's not unbearably hot like it is in Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then, you know, it is hitting triple digits for sure, like 115 in St. George.
Well, I wouldn't say easily, but it definitely is not, it's not an anomaly either, for sure. So yeah, so the thing is that you can work around it. The rest of the year, the other 9 months of the year are pretty fantastic. The winters are not snowy or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's mild winters. Spring and fall are amazing. Summer is definitely hot, but like you're saying, the mornings you can get your pickleball out of the way, you can get your running and hiking and biking out of the way, but then midday we kind of hunker down.
Yeah.
And then in the evenings we come back out and we're at the pool basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we continue, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Sean Dezad.
And I'm Courtney Dezad.
And I'm a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Utah. And if you're watching this channel, you might be thinking, wow, Sean, I love St. George. I love the red rocks. I love the perpetual outdoor weather. I can't wait to move in here. Now, the problem is I'm not local. I may be out of state. I may be even out of the country. So I don't know what to do. I totally get that. That's why I'm going to reach out to us because we work with a team that has over 40 years of experience here in the state of Utah and specifically in southern Utah itself. So we have tons of experience. We know all the nooks and crannies to really direct you into finding that perfect home for you. So what you want to do is you want to give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country. And then in terms of the location, we're about 45 minutes from Zion National Park, so that's something that brings people from all over the world to the St. George area every year. It's a population of the metro area about 200,000, so you know we're big enough to have one Costco, soon to be two Costcos. Yeah, so for a lot of people, it's kind of like the sweet spot in terms of size because you know you still have the conveniences of modern life, but there's a lot of places that are outside from the city center where you can still get that, you know, small town vibe.
Yeah, exactly. So basically you have that, like you mentioned, the Goldilocks zone, kind of how we're talking about, where it's not too big, it's not too small, it's just right. So it's not too big in that you lose that whole neighborly feel about it, but it's not so small that you're just relying on a general store. Like you actually have all the big box stores, so you have the conveniences of a bigger city, but you're not in a big city. And then if you really want to have like that small town vibe, because we do get people that have been here for decades and they actually do not like that St. George has grown as much as it has, although really it's not that big.
No.
But at the same time, for those that actually do have that issue, you know, what's beautiful about the area is that you can go in the outskirts of town and you can get all the small town vibe that you could ever ask for.
Yeah, and I think one of the things just to stress about St. George is that even though we have a similar climate to Las Vegas, it is just so much more beautiful here, I would say. I mean, I just remember the first time that we ever came to St. George, we were driving through, so if you're driving, from Las Vegas, you're driving through the gorge, and then you just get here and you really see just like this whole valley with these beautiful, stunning red rocks. I mean, it really just changes from when you're in the Arizona/Nevada side where it's just super brown. And then here it's just that stark difference of the beautiful red rocks. And then we do have a decent amount of green here because we do have 2 rivers here. So it just feels like a lot different, I would say, than you think of like a typical desert area.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for one, you're going, like, you mentioned going through the gorge. The gorge itself kind of has a really, like, almost like a Grand Canyon kind of feel to it. And it is a strikingly beautiful, like, whenever I'm driving through there, I'm like having my visors up. I want to take it all in. You have to obviously have to keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah.
But it is mesmerizing. It's absolutely stunning and beautiful. And then your payoff getting through that is you start to see Pine Mountain. You see the red rocks, and you're going, it sounds so superficial. You're like, well, it's just the color red. You're like, it's something to really behold because it is absolutely stunning.
Yeah. And then do you want to talk about the cost of living? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, so Sean can talk about it.
So basically, as far as the overall cost of living, so this isn't taking into account housing, it is a bit above the median national cost of living, right? But if you take housing out of the equation, the rest of the items like the utilities, healthcare, all the other miscellaneous items, it's actually slightly below that. In fact, when we're talking about utilities, electricity happens to be incredibly reasonable here compared to a lot of other parts of the country. I remember when I was setting up the electricity service and we have an electric vehicle that, depending on where you're coming from, you get actually some sort of, if you're charging off hours, your electricity rate is actually really low for that particular point in time during those specific off-peak hours. I called the electric company and I said, okay, I wondered if you had any similar services. And they said, no, it's just whatever the charge is, it is. And I'm going, oh, okay, that's annoying, but it is what it is. And then I was like, okay, so how much is the electricity rate? And when they told me the rate, it was half of the off-peak hour rate that I was lucky to have from where we were coming from. So you're going, this is absolutely incredible. And things like groceries and all these other things, everything is pretty reasonably priced, very comparable for the rest of the country. And when you take into account housing, actually, St. George is really not that much of a premium compared to the median national housing averages. So you're kind of dealing with a situation where there's a slight premium, maybe about 15% or so over the median national average. But when you take into account that this is a destination, people come here from all over the world. They want to have second homes. They want to just be here because it's so beautiful. The fact that the actual premium is just actually not that much. Whereas when you take into account, like, let's say things like Hawaii, like Florida, like California, those are also, again, vacation destinations. There's multiples over. I mean, there's plenty of places in Hawaii that could be 10 times more than the median average, right? So it's pretty crazy how, for a nice area, for a destination spot, that the premium isn't actually more than what it is.
Yeah, and just one little caveat for the electricity, depending on where you are and what electric company you use, it will be more or less expensive. We actually live with the least expensive electric company. So.
Yeah, and even like, for instance, depending on where you are, solar is a huge, big deal because it does offset the cost. Here, I would actually say that depending on where you are, solar may not be all that important because the electricity rates, depending on where you are, can be incredibly low. And that's one of those things that when people are reaching out to us, we do kind of let them know, okay, this is what the utility companies would be for your specific area that you're zeroing in on. And then you kind of get a sense of, okay, well, what would those rates be? Because it does kind of vary depending on where you are here.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to sort of like sum it up, I mean, who is St. George for? Like, I feel like anyone who's looking for a place that has like a strong community vibe, I mean, wants a slower pace of life, wants beautiful, stunning landscape around them, who doesn't mind the hotter summers, right? Loves the outdoor activities. I mean, if you're someone that is, clubbing every day, I don't know if St. George is the right place for you. But, or if you just absolutely love cold weather, although our friend, he loves cold weather and he's found St. George to be the place for him, so.
Yeah, I mean, the people that are really reaching out, they want the outdoor lifestyle. That's really, and again, because we cater to all of that and more between just the natural landscape, between the golf courses, the pickleball stuff, the trails, the cycling, the biking, the running, the hiking, all that stuff. We have so much, even if you have your toys, like if you want to go side by side, if you want to go dirt bike riding, there's so much to do here from an outdoors perspective.
Yeah.
That's really what people are coming out here for, because they want to, again, you're not really coming out here just to be indoors. Like, you want to experience all of this.
Yeah, and I just remember when we first moved here, just how welcoming all of our neighbors were, even though they had no idea who we were. They were immediately, inviting us over to parties. We really just got to know everyone like so quickly, and it was just refreshing to have such a warm and welcoming place that, kind of just welcomes you with open arms. So
yeah, I call this place the farthest west Midwestern town. I know people have actually commented that it's definitely not in the Midwest, and I understand that. It's more of the way of life, right?
Yeah.
The caring for your neighbor kind of, again, just not that it's overbearing, because that's the thing too, that this is not so small that everyone's up in your business either. That wasn't super appealing to us. We wanted to make sure that you had your autonomy, but you still had the stop and smell the roses kind of vibe to it, where I was literally like leaving to go to a Costco, shockingly, and as I was driving, like about to leave, my neighbors, we kind of had a 30-minute conversation just like on my way, and just chatting about what was going on. And, it's nice to kind of feel that inclusivity, I guess, but at the same time, it's not overbearing either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Sean said, it's not so small that everyone knows everyone's business. Although I will say that if I'm driving and I want to honk at someone, a lot of times I won't. I might know them.
Yeah, that, and also you have a distinctive car too. So you're going, okay, well, it's not that big where I just blend into everything. Yeah. So it is that Goldilocks. We kind of this is the Goldilocks zone, right? It's not too big, not too small. It's just right. Yeah,
like one time I was driving down the road and I was gonna honk at someone, and then my son's like, "That's my friend's mom."
Oh no, that would be a little awkward.
I know, so I'm like, probably good I didn't do that.
And remember, I am a licensed real estate agent here in the state of Utah. So as much as we love making these videos, what we love more is to help with your real estate needs. So whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, what you want to do is when you give us a call or shoot us a text.
Yes, that number is a cell phone, so you can call us or text us, or you can use WhatsApp if you're outside the country.